Hello everyone, welcome to the Crystaly Recapped channel. And now you're going to hear a short retelling of the movie, The Last Voyage of the Demeter. The movie begins on August 6, 1897. A ship called the Demeter arrives at the English coast in the middle of the night with a cargo of 50 boxes. After an initial inspection, a young officer reports to his superiors that there is no one on board, and only the captain's diary remains the last clue to the mysterious disappearance of the crew. The story moves 4 weeks back in time to the port of Varna in Bulgaria. Captain Elliot orders his senior assistant Wojciech to recruit the necessary number of people for the crew. Among the candidates for sailors is Dr. Clemens, who wants to return home to England. However, Wojciech prefers stronger workers with more useful skills. Meanwhile, the peasants, having handed over the crates, want to leave the city before sunset, not even tempted by gold for the cargo. The sailors begin to load them, but in the process, one of the newcomers notices a dragon-shaped coat of arms. Out of surprise, he lets go of the rope and the box almost falls on Toby, the captain's little grandson. But Clemens, who was nearby, saves the boy. The new sailor immediately leaves the ship, saying that he did not sign up to work with a dragon. Instead, Wojciech agrees to take Clemens on board. After loading up, the Demeter sails away and sets sail just as the sun is setting. The villagers see the ship in the distance and cross themselves superstitiously. On board, Toby shows Clemens how everything works. He explains that the crew communicates with each other by tapping on the wooden hull of the ship. There are animals in the hold, which the boy takes care of until they are eaten on the way. The doctor also meets a local dog and a cook named Joseph. In the evening, the captain announces that he is retiring after this voyage and hands over the Demeter to Wojciech. Over dinner, the sailors discuss their plans for London. Suddenly, they hear a dog barking. Toby and Clemens go down to the animal to check it out, but instead find a girl who has somehow gotten on the ship. The stowaway turns out to be severely emaciated and infected with some kind of infection. Despite the crew's refusal, Clemens gives her first aid and then organizes a blood transfusion. Remembering that the woman is a troublemaker, one of the sailors offers to throw her overboard, but the captain does not want to mar his last voyage with such an episode. Clemens has to protect the girl's peace of mind from the scrutiny of the crew members who show different interests in their new companion. When the doctor takes the helm, he asks Toby to take over. The sailor who replaces him looks out to sea through a spyglass. Turning around, he sees the horrifying face of a hideous creature, but in a moment the vision disappears. The sailor walks along the deck to check who is hiding there and notices blood on the floor. Clemens, distracted for a moment, loses sight of his friend, and fixing the steering wheel goes in search of him. Together they go down into the hold and find dead animals. On the body of each of them you can see terrible bites. They report the incident to the captain. The disgruntled sailors naturally conclude that this has never happened to them before, until Clemens and a suspicious girl appear on board. The situation escalates and almost leads to a massacre. Deciding what to do with the dead animals, the doctor warns that rabies is transmitted only through bites. However, the crew decides not to take any chances and throws the spoiled meat overboard. While preparing the sails for the approaching storm, Clemens talks to his mate. The sailor admits that he saw something supernatural last night. Later, the doctor continues to transfuse the girl's blood. The girl mumbles something in her delirium, and they learn that her name is Anna. At night, Clemens meets Joseph in the hold. The cook has noticed that all the rats on the ship have disappeared, and a ship without rats is not normal, especially if something has scared them away. At the same time, a sailor on deck notices that the grate in the hold is broken, as if someone had broken out. He notices a strange creature in the night that rushes at him and slits his throat with its claws. Bleeding to death, the sailor sees the monster crawling toward him, licking blood from the planks along the way. Then it reaches the man and sinks its teeth into his throat, drinking blood from the wound. Later, Clemens finds a hole in the grate, bloodstains, and a lost knife and reports it to the captain. In the morning, the crew decides that the sailor got drunk while on duty and fell overboard. But this does not explain the bloodstains, which makes Wojciech suspect the doctor. Clemens explains that someone drank the blood, but he is interrupted by Anna, who has woken up. She shouts that they need to leave the ship immediately, but the first mate does not want to give in to superstition, despite the mood of the crew. In the evening, during another blood transfusion, Anna tells us that someone named Dracula has entered the ship. He is a monster in the flesh who can take on human form and more. He lived in a castle near her village, feeding on its inhabitants, whom the elders sacrificed to him. When Dracula decided to move to England in one of the crates, the girl was sent with him as food so that the bloodsucker could have a snack. When she came out, he had to go hunting too. At night, the sailors on deck are frightened not only by the stormy weather, but also by a beast prowling in the dark. One of them, Olgarin, says that Anna should have been thrown overboard, but he cannot do it, remembering his daughter. After a while, his friend goes to light the lanterns, but when he returns, he does not find Olgarin. After a while, Olgarin answers a knock that his friend did not hear. Taking out their knives, the sailors search for the knocker, but the search turns into an attack by a monster that smashes one of them's head on the floor. Olgarin, terrified, climbs the ropes to the mast, but the monster follows him. The crew rushes to the deck where Clement notices blood dripping on Toby's shirt. Its source is the wounded Olgarin. They take him off and put him in the cabin, where the doctor states that the wound is a bite. The captain orders the ship to be searched. The sailors search the ship with lanterns and weapons but find nothing. Captain Elliot asks his grandson to clean the spyglass, locking himself in his cabin. Meanwhile, the sun is tending to set, which naturally causes the crew members to feel fear. Even Olgarin, who is tied to his bed, begins to move chaotically. Hearing the noise, Toby leaves the captain's cabin. In the semi-darkness, he bumps into Olgarin, who is acting strangely. His eyes are covered with white. The sailor drags the boy with him, but he manages to break free and return to his cabin. Olgarin bangs his head against the door, ignoring the words and the pain. Olgarin almost opens the bolt through the hole he has made, but sailors led by Clemens appear in the corridor, having heard the noise. Thanks to Wojciech's efforts, they barely manage to grab him and tie him up. In his cabin, Toby hears someone asking him to open the door, but he is prevented by a mysterious creature lurking nearby. While the rest of the crew breaks through the leaky, locked door, Dracula slowly creeps up on the boy and bites him. Only the appearance of Anna with a gun suggests that the bolt can be knocked out with a shot. However, the sailors find the bitten boy unconscious inside. By the morning, Toby's health is deteriorating. Olgarin is tied to the mast for interrogation, but he is delirious. He says he can hear everything, even the blood rushing through his veins. Olgarin repeats that he will burn when the sun rises, and the first rays of the sun that reach him suddenly make the sailor burst into hellish flames. After Olgarin's burning, doubts grow among the crew. Joseph believes that they are cursed for their sins. Clemens says that the disease that mowed down Olgarin could get to Toby. Wojciech suggests that they try a blood transfusion, as they did with Anna. The boy's grandfather, Captain Elliot, is involved in the transfusion, although the doctor is not sure that this will help the child because of the difference in size. Clemens wants to open the boxes in the hold to find the monster. Anna volunteers to help him, revealing weapon skills that are suspicious for a peasant woman. They rummage through the hold and discover that the cargo is just earth, and only one crate has secret locks for easy opening. But inside there is only earth, corpse worms, and reeds. At this time, the cook Joseph launches one of the boats to get away from the cursed ship. He rows away, but soon notices that a terrifying monster that can fly has landed on the stern of the boat. Its dying cry is heard on the Demeter, and then the empty boat rests against the side of the ship. Meanwhile, Wojciech learns that Toby, the captain's grandson, has died of an infection. At dawn, the boy is buried according to maritime customs, wrapped in cloth and prepared to be thrown into the sea. During the ceremony, Captain Elliot thinks that his grandson has moved. Grief-stricken, he lifts the cloth, and then the dead boy opens his whitened eyes and rushes to his grandfather. The sun's rays burn him, just like Olgarin. The crew manages to pull Elliot away. While the wounded captain rests in his cabin, Wojciech takes over the command, and he has a number of questions for Clemens. However, they have a common enemy that they must fight together. The survivors plan to lure Dracula out. Anna warns them, however, that it is foolish to compete with an ancient evil in subterfuge. Realizing that the vampire's goal is to arrive in London, the team plans to sink the ship before it reaches England. Wojciech expresses his obvious disagreement, but is persuaded that the ship is first and foremost about the crew, not the planks. Then he prepares to make the decisive breakthrough himself. In the afternoon, the crew prepares a trap for Dracula by knocking down the grates from the hold and building crow's nests on the tower. Clemens visits the captain, who shows signs of insanity. Elliot is against leaving the ship. The monster promises him to return his grandson if he delivers Demeter to the shore. Despite the threat of weapons, Clemens and Anna oppose this idea. They tell him that the passenger from the hold is not a savior, but a dirty murderer. After being persuaded, Elliot decides to stay on the sinking ship, as he has nowhere else to go. When night falls, the sailors wait in ambush. The ship has only a few hours left before arriving in England, but suddenly the sea is enveloped in a suspiciously thick fog that reduces all visibility to nothing. Wojciech and the sailor sit in ambush in a crow's nest, while Clemens and Anna steer the boat to lure Dracula out. The plan goes awry when the vampire attacks the ambush. The sailor falls under the vampire's claws. The assistant captain aims at the monster in the fog, but when he starts to descend, someone attacks him. Wojciech falls into the hold through the grate, breaking his leg. Screaming, he orders the others to prepare the boat for departure, and he makes his way aboard with an axe. While Anna and Clemens are launching the boat, Wojciech apologizes to Demeter and breaks through the side to sink the ship. But before he can finish the job, he is attacked by the monster Dracula. Clemens finds an abandoned axe in the breach and returns to the deck to take the captain. But Elliot clings to the helm and wants to stay with his ship. He meets the vampire face to face and dies in the fight. Clemens finds the captain tied to the wheel. Untying him, he hears a last request to inform him that the captain has not abandoned the ship. He then challenges the vampire to a fight, insulting him. Dracula appears and attacks the doctor, but Anna shoots him in the back with a rifle to distract him. However, the monster catches the doctor at the last moment. The vampire claws at the neck, intending to eat it, but Anna cuts the rope and points the mast at it. While the monster is pinned by a tree to another mast, people jump overboard, hoping to climb onto the lowered boat. While the lighthouse keepers watch the out-of-control vessel, Anna and Clemens swim in the water on the wreckage. They do not know that Dracula has escaped the trap, but the girl knows that the infection in her blood has not disappeared. At dawn, she is going to sail away, saying that a blood transfusion will only delay the inevitable. Clemens watches as she bursts into flames, turning to ash. In the final scene in London, the newspaper reporters talk about Demeter. Clemens himself, hiding from fame, wanders the city. He comes across him in a tavern where he pretends to be an aristocrat. As he leaves, Dracula marks the doctor with a scratch, forcing him to follow the trail. This is the end of the movie. That's all for today. Subscribe and like if you want more videos like this.